I want to speak to you today about something that I haven't heard people talk about a whole bunch, and that is prayer and obedience and the relationship between the two. I don't think that you can separate your communion with God, that intimacy with Him, and obedience to His Word. A number of years ago in the early history of Christianity, there were monks who would often separate themselves from the real world, and they would go and get away, and they would have just extensive times of prayer, seeking the Lord. And there's something that just doesn't quite strike me right about that. And don't misunderstand me. I believe there are times in which we need to really meet with God. We need to get with Him. We need to get away and pull aside and meet with the Lord. And I've been talking about that. But you see, prayer is not to disassociate ourselves from the real world and the needs and the hurts of the world. In fact, it's just the opposite. Prayer ought to thrust us into going to a needy and hurting world to bring the love of Jesus Christ to that world. Jesus spoke a parable about prayer, and he talked about a man who had been robbed, and there were people who came by, and there was a religious man who walked by, and he didn't have time to stop and help that poor man who had been robbed because he was praying and he was doing his religious duties. And Jesus said, that's not what prayer is. That's not what prayer is all about. You see, prayer enables us to go out and reach out to hurting people, to love them, to care about them, to reach them with the message of God's love, to share the gospel of Jesus Christ with them. Jesus said this. He said, I do nothing on my own initiative. And Jesus didn't try to do things in His own power, so He didn't just go out doing things. He waited upon the Lord, He heard from God, and then He acted upon what He had heard. You see, there's this relationship of waiting before the Lord, hearing from God, and then obeying what you have heard. You see, it's trust and obey. There was an old song that said, trust and obey, for there's no other way to be happy in Jesus but to trust and obey. Faith comes from spending time alone with God in prayer and in His Word. Obedience comes from as we hear from Him, we go out and we obey Him and we do His will. We bring His kingdom to this earth. We show people the love of Christ. We reach out to people with His love. So today, prayer and obedience, trust and obey. That's the way to really find power in prayer and to see God use your life.